Rugby is a crucible, forging legendary players with every match. It's a test of heart, endurance, and raw physicality, where only the toughest warriors thrive. Some players dominate the game with speed, skill, and strategy, but others? They carve their names into history through sheer grit, fearless aggression, and an unbreakable will to win. These are the players who didn't just play rugby, they embodied its brutal essence. The men who redefined what it means to be tough. From warriors who walked off career-ending injuries to enforcers whose tackles became legend. Their stories push the limits of human endurance. Today, we're breaking down rugby's baddest players, the icons who changed the game through their raw power, their resilience, and their ability to push through the pain like no one else. And trust me, you won't believe some of the stories in this list. Brian Lima, the chiropractor. Some players tackle. Brian Lima demolishes people. The Samoan enforcer played in a record 5 Rugby World Cups, 1991, 1995, 1999, 2003, and 2007, the most of any backline player in history. But he wasn't just known for his longevity. He was known for his earth-shattering, perfectly timed tackles that left opponents seeing stars. Lima's most infamous hit came in the 2003 Rugby World Cup, when he delivered a devastating tackle on South Africa's Darrett Haugaard. The impact was so brutal that even the commentators were left stunned. The hit was legal, but right on the edge. His reputation for delivering bone-crushing tackles earned him the nickname the chiropractor, because he rearranged his opponents' bodies with frightening precision. But Lima was more than just a defensive weapon. He was also a skilled attacker, a rugby icon who inspired an entire generation of Samoan players to play fearless rugby. Wayne "Buck" Shelford, the unbreakable captain. Wayne Shelford wasn't just tough, he was indestructible. The All Blacks legend secured his place in history during a brutal test match against France in 1986, where he suffered one of the most horrifying injuries in rugby history. During a ruck, Shelford was at the bottom of a pile when he suffered a torn scrotum and lost multiple teeth from opponent's boot. Any normal human being would have been rushed to the hospital. But not Buck Shelford. Instead, he was stitched up on the sideline and went straight back into the game. This moment alone cemented his legacy, but it was far from his only achievement. In 1987, as a captain, he led New Zealand to their first ever Rugby World Cup title, transforming the All Blacks into an unstoppable force. Under his leadership, New Zealand went on a 14-test unbeaten streak, setting a standard for dominance. Shelford wasn't just a player, he was a warrior who embodied the spirit of the All Blacks. Bobby Windsor, the Duke of Grit. In the 1970s, Welsh rugby was built on power and passion, and at the heart of it all was Bobby Windsor. Known as the Duke, Windsor was a key member of the legendary Pontypool front row, one of the most feared forward units in rugby history. As a hooker, he was known for his raw strength, incredible scrummaging ability, and a no-nonsense approach that turned him into a legend. Opponents feared him, not just because of his skill, but because he played rugby like a street fighter. Windsor helped Wales win multiple Five Nations championships, solidifying himself as a tough-as-nails competitor who refused to back down. Off the field, Windsor's tough personality made him one of the most respected and feared figures in rugby history. Colin Meads, the man who played with a broken arm. Some players take a hit and stay down. Colin Meads took a broken arm and finished the game. At 6'4" and 100 kilograms, Meads was a towering presence in New Zealand rugby for over a decade, earning a reputation as one of the most relentless forwards of all time. His most famous moment? During a brutal match, Meads broke his arm midway through the game, but instead of leaving the field, he kept playing. After the final whistle, the team doctor cut away his jersey, confirmed the break, and Meads simply muttered, "At least we won the bloody game." And that was the kind of no-excuses mentality that defined his career. Meads wasn't just tough, he was a symbol of old-school rugby at its finest. Jerry Collins, the human wrecking ball. Some players talk tough, Jerry Collins hit tough. Standing at 6'3" and 110 kilograms, Collins was one of the most feared flankers in rugby history. His bone-rattling tackles were legendary, striking fear into even the biggest opponents. One of his most famous moments came in a test match against Wales, where he delivered a hit so powerful that it echoed through the stadium. The sheer force of the tackle left players, fans, and commentators stunned. But Collins wasn't just about brute force. His rugby IQ, leadership, and commitment to the game made him a cornerstone of the All Blacks defense from 2001 to 2007. Off the field, Collins was a humble mentor, dedicated to helping young players. Tragically, his life was cut short in 2015 in a car accident, but his legacy as one of rugby's baddest men lives on. Norm Hadley, the Canadian Colossus. When people think of rugby's toughest players, Norm Hadley isn't always the first name that comes to mind, but he should be. Standing at 6'7" and weighing over 120 kilograms, Hadley was an unstoppable force in the second row. Born in Canada, he played with an intensity and aggression that earned him respect worldwide. His powerful running and uncompromising defense made him one of the most feared forwards of his era. Hadley's most legendary moment came during the 1991 Rugby World Cup, when Canada took on France. The Canadians were underdogs, but Hadley led the pack with a dominant display of physicality, relentlessly smashing into the French forwards and proving that Canada could go toe-to-toe with rugby's elite. Beyond international rugby, Hadley made a name for himself in England, playing for Wasps in the Premiership, where he quickly became a fan favorite. His mix of size, strength, and pure aggression made him a nightmare for opponents in both club and international play. Hadley wasn't just a rugby player, he was a wrecking machine, a true Canadian enforcer whose legacy still resonates today. David Bedell Sivright, the original hardman. Before rugby had modern enforcers, there was David Bedell Sivright, a man who defined toughness in the early 1900s. Born in Scotland in 1880, Bedell Sivright was a ferocious forward who captained both Scotland and the British and Irish Lions. He was known for his aggressive, no-nonsense playing style, setting the standard for rugby's hardmen long before the professional era. At a time when rugby was even more brutal than it is today, played with fewer rules, little protection, and no substitutions, Bedell Sivright dominated opponents with his sheer physicality and relentless attitude. He was described as a player who was impossible to intimidate and was feared by his rivals for his ruthless tackling and uncompromising leadership. Beyond rugby, Bedell Sivright was also a surgeon, showcasing a rare combination of brains and brawn. However, his toughness extended far beyond the rugby field. During World War I, he enlisted in the Royal Navy and served with distinction, but tragically, his life was cut short when he died of illness while on active duty in 1915. Bedell Sivright was a true pioneer of rugby toughness. He wasn't just one of the baddest men of his time, he was one of the baddest men in rugby history. Scott Gibbs, the bulldozer of Wembley. The year is 1999, Wembley Stadium, Wales versus England. With seconds left, Scott Gibbs received the ball and plowed through England's defense, running over defenders like a wrecking ball to score a historic try. That moment, it was one of the greatest tries in rugby history. Gibbs was a rugby bulldozer, short, powerful, and nearly impossible to bring down. He was an enforcer who thrived on pure aggression, known for both his physicality and technical brilliance. Gerard Cholet, France's most feared prop. Some rugby players command respect. Gerard Cholet commanded fear. Standing at 6'4" and over 120 kilograms, Cholet was an unstoppable force in the French forward pack during the 1970s. Known for his raw strength and explosive aggression, he was a scrummaging monster who dominated opponents with sheer physicality. But what made Cholet truly terrifying was his reputation for brutality on the pitch. His approach to the game was simple: overwhelm opponents with brute force. His tackles and hits left opponents dazed, and his presence in the scrum made life miserable for anyone who had to pack down against him. Cholet didn't just play rugby, he terrorized it. He remains one of the most feared front row enforcers the sport has ever known. Paddy Mayne, the rugby player who became a war hero. Some players are tough on the pitch. Paddy Mayne was tough on the battlefield. Born in Ireland in 1915, Mayne was a fearsome forward who played for Ireland and the British and Irish Lions. He was a dominant force in the scrum, known for his aggressive playing style, unmatched endurance, and sheer physicality. His leadership and ability to inspire teammates made him a standout in the Irish pack. But while he was an outstanding rugby player, his true legend was forged in war. When World War II broke out, Mayne joined the British Army and quickly became one of the most decorated soldiers of the entire war. As a founding member of the Special Air Service, SAS, Mayne led daring behind enemy line raids, destroying German aircraft, supply depots, and infrastructure. One of his most audacious missions saw him credited with personally destroying over 100 enemy aircraft, an unheard of feat. His bravery and sheer determination made him a military legend. Maine's rugby career and military heroics made him one of the most extraordinary figures in history. Few have ever combined such dominance on the rugby pitch with such unparalleled bravery on the battlefield. Maine wasn't just a rugby legend, he was a true warrior, both on and off the field. His dual legacy as a rugby enforcer and military hero is unmatched in sports history. These men didn't just play rugby, they redefined what toughness means in sports. Who's your favorite from our list? Let us know in the comments below. This is just part 1, and the next chapter of rugby's baddest men will be just as brutal. So don't forget to subscribe, because part 2 is coming soon.